It is man. 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 It is man.
Okay, so everybody, welcome to another episode of It Is Ma'am. And today we have a guest, Kirralie Smith. Hello.
Hello.
And I
Great.
just want to say that Kay's not going to be with us today because we were supposed to record yesterday and I messed up the times because of the time change. And Kay had some business to take care of today. So it's just me and Kirralie, and I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for being so flexible and understanding and accommodating.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's lovely to speak with you.
It's really great for you to be here. So I know that Kay stumbled upon one of your videos and she really just loved your personality. And of course, we're all sort of fighting for the same thing here. And it's really interesting to find out what's going on globally because this craziness is happening everywhere. And you're in Australia. And it's interesting to see kind of where everyone's at. So, you know, in Canada, they're going at a different pace. In the UK, they're going at a different pace. Here in the US, and then Australia. I think you're pinned videos from 2019.
The pinned one is, that's right. Yeah, I've been in this space now for almost 6 years, and as you probably know, like we're right up there with Canada when it comes to the lunacy, the censorship, the misogyny, everything that's going on in this space just blows my mind every single day. But yes, that pinned video when Cricket Australia and a lot of sports first started signing up to this absolutely insane policy that males are allowed in female sport. Yeah, I was outraged then. I'm even more outraged now.
I can imagine it's not like your outrage is going to lessen as the years go by.
And we're just being proven right time and time again. That's the thing. And it's really frustrating. We feel like we're shouting to the wind a lot of the time, but we know that public opinion is on our side. But gee, we have some very special politicians and people in leadership in this country that really need a dose of reality.
So when did this get on your radar? Because I was late to the game, super late.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a bit controversial for some people, but give me a moment, and that's okay. We all come from different perspectives, but we had the same-sex marriage campaign here in Australia, and I was all for civil unions and legal rights and everything else for same-sex couples, but I was a very strong advocate that if we redefine the word marriage, we'll end up redefining other words. And as a result, especially here in Australia, but around the world, what's happened is the redefinition of the word woman. It's now completely nonsensical. Our official political statement, like every Minister for Women in Australia, federal and state, says that anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman, which is just a circular, nonsensical statement. Doesn't even make sense. We now have a real push on for children to be called mature minors in law, which basically means they're mini adults and that they can have autonomy and make decisions, whether it's to change their sex or, be vaccinated or whatever it is. And so for me, like I said, it's not an anti-same-sex couple thing at all, but it's simply that words matter, words have meaning, history, context, all of those sort of things. And I hate that we've been put in this situation. And now, I'm sure, I know it happens in the US, I know it happens in Canada and the UK as well, that, we now have 3-year-olds being read story time by drag queens because, we have to be inclusive and diverse, but, so inappropriate to sexualize children at any age, at any level, in any way. But it's like there's this free-for-all going on. And so I'm really happy and really proud to say that in this space, I am a Christian woman. I have a Bachelor of Theology. That's my position. But it's so wonderful to stand shoulder to shoulder with women from all walks of life, all ethnicities, the whole political spectrum. This is the one issue that unites us all. And it's just such a privilege to be able to have so many women in this space, so many friends, dear friends in this space, and we have different political views, and that's okay.
It's okay, people. I did not know that about you, and that is so fascinating. I love that that's what your bachelor's is in. That was actually something that I toyed with,
Okay.
sort
Yep.
of back in the day, just because it's so fascinating. And I mean, I feel like it answers a lot of questions when you know a lot about all of the religions. So I imagine you have a storage bank of information.
I do. And one of the reasons my platform was so big before, even this came along, well, for in Australian context, not in an American context, but I really again have a lot of Muslim people in my life, but the Islamic ideology, the way it treats women in particular, is very concerning. And so I call myself the accidental activist because I didn't mean to step out and have this platform, but it just appears if you speak truth, people want to listen, and it's incredible. I know,
Yeah,
and that's basically where it started for me. And I feel like I really want to be a good steward of the platforms that I have, and continue to speak the truth, be a voice for the voiceless, and encourage other women in particular, but people from all walks of life to speak truth because it's evidence based, it's reality, it's not just in the gender space, but it's a really important. This is the hill I will die on now, and I will not relent until we get our female sex-based rights back.
I love it. I am right there with you on all of it. You have an organization, is binary. Can you
Correct,
tell me
correct.
about that?
Sure, yeah. So we started that in around 2018, 2019, and it was to deal with all of these issues of redefining language, sexualization of children, the erosion of parental rights, and we really didn't expect the erasure of women to happen so quickly, but it has. And so my organization now has around 100,000 email subscribers. We exist to be political lobbyists and to raise awareness in the public space. And along the way, though, we've also come across, obviously, a lot of people very severely impacted by this ideology. And so, so we now also offer support and platforms for people who have been really harmed by this ideology. So, but first and foremost, political lobbying, raising awareness, getting that change in the public policy space in Australia. And we really concentrate on child safeguarding, parental rights, and women's sex-based rights.
Yeah, that's the important stuff. What's going on politically? Who's in charge? Why did it happen? What's being done about it? Oh, it sounds
Great
like it's
question.
it looks like it's going to be a joke of some kind.
I just feel like because we've become a nation of morons, I don't understand how, like it is incredible. But mind you, you've got Joe Biden, so I think you win. But Anthony Albanese, the Labor government here in Australia is a very left-leaning government, but they're also very impotent, I would say. They're doing a lot to destroy our nation, but they don't do a lot of building in our nation. But that's also because it's called the Liberal Party here in Australia, the more right-wing party, but they're not right-wing at all. They're now left of centre, and they're no opposition whatsoever. And so we're in this situation where there's a two-party preferred system in Australia, and both parties are on the same page, same wavelength. We have no one in opposition except, a few crossbenchers who are doing a good job, but they don't have the numbers to form legislation to make the changes that we need at this point. And so here in Australia, Aussies are really well known for our laid back, she'll be right, mate, sort of attitude. And I think that's partly how we've got to this place because, most good Aussies, let's call them, are really just so consumed with running their own businesses, raising their families, going to Saturday sport and living the good life. We are the lucky country and it's been fabulous. But what that means is most Australians, or too many Australians, are not politically engaged, politically aware. And so, while some of us stand up and scream and shout and, hey, gotta pay attention, until it really hits a family personally, very few actually get engaged. And so it's a very difficult situation. I don't think that the Labor Party will get in at the next elections, but we've still got probably a year or so to go. But the opposition, as I said, aren't much better. So it's really going to be an interesting, I'd say, decade. The next decade's going to be really interesting as more and more people wake up. We are behind the US. We are definitely behind the UK in many, many ways. I think we're very on par with Canada when it comes to, a really disillusioned kind of political space.
It's so strange thinking of Canada right now. I just started thinking of it right when you mentioned it, and I just all of a sudden felt really dark.
Yeah, yeah.
I immediately
It's
thought of The Handmaid's Tale. Mm,
yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah, from what I know of it, yes, it's
yeah, it's not a good time. I'll tell you
no,
that. Don't watch
no.
it.
Okay.
It's a great show. Yeah, the language thing is really important. So changing the word marriage, that alerted you right away. Why is that? Is that because of your education? Because a lot of people don't understand how language is so important. I know because I've started studying cults 4 years ago, and I mean
Wow.
that's the
Yeah,
foundation of it,
totally, totally.
But
Yeah,
why do
look,
you
I
know?
mean, yeah, definitely my education, my faith, and just observation and becoming very politically engaged. And then I guess, having an interest in Middle Eastern politics as well, and seeing countries, that were once liberal democracies becoming communist, totalitarian regimes. It all comes about, and we reference it a lot. I think George Orwell encapsulated it so well in his novels, but particularly 1984. And I did study that at high school many, 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 many moons
It
ago.
was my favorite. And I think that's probably a big issue because, a lot of us don't give a fuck about high school when we're in high school, and understandably so. It sucks so, so bad. But 1984, for whatever reason, really, really spoke to me. I wrote,
Yeah,
one of my best papers about it. I never
yeah,
forgot about it. I've done a whole revisit of it and Brave
yeah,
New World, which,
yeah,
gosh, Brave New World. Everyone, I've mentioned it before. Please reread those two
yes,
books.
yes,
But yeah, I think that's another reason why I was like, because for
yep,
me, my speech was compelled at a
yep,
interview for an internship, and something else happened, which I can't remember. It's not important, but I was like, this doesn't
yeah,
feel
wow,
right. And this
yeah,
feels like a feeling that I know would be something I don't
yes,
want. And
yeah.
it's happening,
Well,
like I'm in it. So no, no, no.
totally, totally. And yeah, look, I read Animal Farm first and then 1984, and both terrified me. And that was literally in the 80s when I read those books. And it really was something just captured my imagination, and I guess it's just always stayed there. And then seeing the pathway that our country has gone down after other countries have gone down similar paths, and just feeling really passionate. I can never shut up. I was kicked out of that many classes for talking all the time. But I love to debate. I love to reason, and I love it when someone comes up against me and I have to really think about, why do I think this? Why do I believe it? And even seeing, especially in Australia, we've just lost the art of debate. This cancel culture, this I've been called every name under the sun. It means nothing to me. I'm just like, but what are your ideas? Why do you think that? That's what makes me turns me on, and makes me interested in that sort of conversation. And unfortunately, you could just see where we were headed. It just seems so glaringly obvious to me, and I'm like, why can't everyone else see this? Like,
Oh
this
my
train is gonna wreck
gosh.
really quickly.
Yeah, I was trying to talk to someone out in the real world, which I don't really like to, about this issue. And it was so difficult for me. I was like crying in a space yesterday day about it on Twitter because I had no one to like bounce it off of. So I got in the space and I expressed myself. You don't realize how much something bothers you. So you start talking and you're like, oh, bleh. But yeah, so frustrating. I'm like, how can you not see when I'm telling you? And PS, we're not strangers. You've known me for 20 years. Did you think
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
woke up and decided to start telling you lies today? Or I just woke up and, became really extreme? no, I have information. Can you please listen to me? Like, why can you
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
I wanted to talk about, not talk about, but I keep seeing these pictures come up on my feed about Iran when they were, much more free. And it's
Yes.
heartbreaking because people don't know that they were walking around in little mini skirts
Hmm.
and, having
Free,
their hair
fun,
out.
partying.
And
Yeah.
yes,
Just
what
like you and I,
the
no
fuck?
different to you and I. And,
That
someone
could
was asleep at the
happen.
wheel. Yeah. Well,
There's women
it
on my
happened.
block in full.
Yep.
I don't like it. I'm
No.
okay with everything up until we're only showing the eyes. And then
Yeah.
that's bothering me. I'm having a visceral response. I don't want to see that. So take that shit somewhere else,
Yeah,
honestly.
absolutely. It's offensive because when our faces are so unique and beautiful and special and expressive, and it is a really dehumanizing action to
Well,
cover our face.
so the good thing is they're not all in black, not on my street. There are some elsewhere, but I was at the bus stop and I guess the woman knew me from our block. I hadn't seen her before, but she had seen me. And so we're standing there and she looked at me and I think she said something. And I looked and I was like, oh my God, there's like a cute little woman in there with like little glasses. And I looked at her like dorky little sneakers. And then we had a full on conversation. I'm like, this is so
Yeah.
shitty because I had no clue like what's under there. And she's like super happy to talk to me. And you feel like maybe they don't want to talk to
Well,
anyone, but
I think
there's
it's a
just a
bit more
person under
complex.
there.
Yeah, that's
Ugh,
right. That's
fucking
right.
Christ. What are you
Yeah.
thinking about? I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but what are you thinking about what's going on in the college campuses with this? Have you seen what's happening? These
With
students are converting to Islam.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's horrifying, and it's just more evidence that critical thinking is dead. People are not analyzing. Everything's an emotional reaction to what they think is the truth, but it's not. It doesn't take much to scratch the surface and analyze what is actually going on. And yeah, I feel really sad and really alarmed. And again, we could see what was happening at universities and colleges around the world for years now, and it just the mind boggles. I don't know. Like, I actually feel really angry with the parents. Like, my kids are 16, 19, and 20. I just think it's horrifying if my kids were doing that. I try to really be in a strong relationship with my children and discussing these things, and we don't have to agree on everything. But like I said, I want to know, why do you think that? Teach them to have reasons and logic and evidence for what they're thinking. And yeah, it really scares me. So I actually feel really angry with my peers, going,
Me
what are you
too.
doing? Like, what are you doing? What were you thinking? What did you just check out when you were raising your kids and let someone else do it? Because that's really irresponsible, and now we're reaping the whirlwind from it.
They let the internet do it.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I mean, MTV helped raise me, but MTV was just a little bit of rock and roll.
Compared to what we've got now. Woo, it's like,
Yeah. Um, so here in the US, the media on the left, which is most of the media other than Fox News, or if people do some kind of independent, what have you, on like if they watch YouTube, if they watch like
yeah,
The Hill, which isn't right wing, I don't think. But if they watch some kind of alternative media. Anyway, the left wing media doesn't touch any of this shit. Like they never mentioned that Will Thomas had a dick. They never talk about how these mass shooters are fucking trans. They'll
yeah,
just say
yeah,
he or she and leave it at that.
yeah.
And it's like, this shit matters, you fuckholes. What's going on in Australia? Do they do the same?
Oh yeah, like totally. And all the media seem very compliant and complicit when it comes to pronouns and not telling the whole truth. Even worse is the court system, as far as I'm concerned, that judges and magistrates in our country, use the, I will say, incorrect pronouns for criminals. We have males housed in female prisons. We have male criminals being called Miss, she, her. It just fascinates me. I thought, naively, thought that the justice system was about evidence-based facts and speaking the truth. And, we all have to swear on the Bible or take an affirmation that will tell the truth. And yet here we are. They can lie about what's right in front of my eyes. So, yes, it's 100% that way. We have maybe Sky News, some Sky News commentators that will speak the truth, but I know that most of the print publications, lawyers and editors are, constantly thwarting reporters who are trying to report the truth.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because the law is supposed to be protecting us from all of this. And if the law can't follow the language, what the fuck are they doing? Like,
it's horrifying. I've had 6 court cases so far, and I've got 2 more to go. And it's really hard. Sal Grover, another Australian who's also been in federal court, and as you know, I loved a while ago now. Anyway, she said, if you say that a woman can have a penis, I won't believe anything else that you say. Or thereabouts was the quote. And I feel that so strongly. It's really hard to trust a justice system that treats men as women. It's how are you going to get a fair hearing? How is there going to be fairness and justice in a court system where the most basic fundamental evidence before my eyes is that man is a man, he's not a woman, and yet everyone in the court is referring to him as her or she or miss.
how long have men been in prisons in Australia?
Only the last few years that I know of, but yeah, look, someone else might be able to answer that question better than I can, but definitely over the past several years.
So I watched Orange is the New Black. Did you watch Orange is
I
the
haven't,
New Black?
no, sorry.
Well, that show is pretty old. It came out, I'm sure, at least a decade ago, if not more.
Right.
There was a man in the woman's prison there. But of course,
Okay.
that character was the most compassionate, peaceful, nonviolent, right? The grooming. I didn't realize I was being groomed. I was like,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah,
just
totally.
like following along the plot, like just the way they
Yeah.
wanted me to. Drool coming out of my mouth. So I was talking about this with women in prison the other day, with someone, and they were like, wait, how's that happening? And I'm like, that's been happening for a really long time. Like, you don't even question, like, don't act like that's something that I might possibly be making up. But it's funny because I saw that show and then never really gave it a second thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until,
I can't imagine it because, most women who are in prison are the most marginalized in our society.
Mhm.
They have been abused, they have suffered trauma, they are the lowest in the socioeconomic space, and now they have to deal with, and most of them are violent male rapists. Let's say it
Yes.
too. Like they're not in for tax fraud. They're in because they have been violent as males and are now being housed in female prisons. And these women, where do they go? What do they do? Like it's just wicked. Like I have no other word for it. It's just pure evil.
Yeah.
That our culture is allowing this to happen.
It is evil, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've always had an issue with the word evil because I'm very science-based and I'm thinking about the chemicals in the brain, right? That's not true anymore because there's no
How
other
can you
word.
explain it? That's like
It's something
how?
else. It's an invisible force.
Okay.
Yeah. Fucking
Oh, well,
horrible.
yeah, I have no, because we're all human, and like I said, we are all made of the same substance, and for some people to make these choices, there has to be another influence. I call it evil. That's what I believe, but it's
I feel like that's what everyone's calling it. That's alert to what's happening
yeah.
because that's what it is. Can you tell me about your lawsuits?
Yeah, I can tell you some things. I can't go into huge detail, but basically, just over a year ago, I did discover that there were males playing in football or soccer teams in my local area and also in Sydney. And so I took information that was publicly available in the public domain, in very public spaces, and asked questions of Football New South Wales and Football Australia. I went through the clubs first, went through all the processes. They wouldn't answer me. They treated me as a bigot. So I I outed them publicly and said, why are these men allowed to play in female soccer teams? So two of those soccer players then applied. I had police turn up at my doorstep last March 2023, to issue me with applications for apprehension of violence orders, because apparently they claimed it was violence for me to call males male. So that was just the first
That's it.
mind-boggling
This
thing.
interview is over. You're a danger to me and society and everything.
Totally. I'm a 52-year-old overweight, well, pretty much disabled woman. I have just had my 10th knee operation, but somehow I am a danger. Now, there were 3 applications all up. One was also from a Football Australia official. She withdrew it just before it went to court. The first one went through. The police had applied for this. I feel like I'm talking about someone else's life or a movie script. It's so bizarre. 6 months of lawyers, the former New South Wales Attorney General. It was a big process. We get to court, we wait all day. The magistrate calls us up and the police withdraw the matter without explanation, without apology, and without opportunity for us to go for costs. So that was really, really confronting. The next player, the third one, that did go to a hearing today in court, and the judge took 4 months, I think, to hand down a decision. She denied that AVO, the apprehension of violence order, but he's now appealing that. So it's quite mind-boggling. And both players also went to a very like a state-based tribunal to try and sue me for vilification because I called them male again. Both of those have been dismissed out of that tribunal because Binary is a third-party political campaigner, and in Australia we don't have the freedoms and rights that you have in the USA when it comes to freedom of speech, but we do have an implied freedom of political speech in our constitution. And so that's our argument. That's where we stand, and that's what we believe, that we have to be able to criticise public policy in a public space and use the examples that I've used. And so the tribunal was not able to hear those cases because it comes under a federal jurisdiction. So one of those players has now refiled that in a local federal court. And so, yeah, so I still face the appeal for the AVO and now the vilification complaint for calling a man a male.
That's just ridiculous, psychotic, dystopian, unbelievable.
I feel
Thank
like a
you
character
for-
in George Orwell's novels. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for doing it. I know you don't want to. I mean, and it sucks that you have to, but
Yeah, well, I literally have no choice because they've brought
Yeah.
these complaints against me. But I also say and continue to say it is the hill I will die on. Nobody will ever compel me to call a man he, she, or miss. I will not compromise on this truth because it's for me, it's for my 2 daughters, it's for our culture, our society, it's for marginalized women. It's, and like I said, I don't care what your political background is, what your ethnic background is, what your socioeconomic background is. This is too important because if we accept the lie that a man could be a woman, then we'll accept every other lie that they're trying to ram down our throats. And I just won't do it.
I love that about you. What's going on with Twitter and Australia, X and Australia?
Isn't that fascinating? Like, again, what is going on? I've had my own personal run-in, let's say, with she's called an e-safety commissioner. Can you believe it? From the Ministry of Truth, basically. And she feels, I think she hails from your country originally.
Really?
And she is just on a rampage to silence any speech that she does not like. And, there's obviously, she's been appointed by the Australian government in this role. There is a whole commission. But she is also a former Twitter employee. She is also on,
The WEF?
Well, yes, the WEF. Yes. No, that's what she's. So, I sound like, a conspiracy theorist, but every conspiracy that we've ever, gone down the rabbit hole of has been proven true. So, yes, she's been behind the taking down of Facebook pages, Instagram pages, and Twitter or X pages. She has, yeah, she has incredible power in this country, but she's really fabulously overstepped the mark a couple of times now. And the first time that really blew up in Australia was when Billboard Chris, he exposed a health, like a health policy maker, politician type character who was trans-identified, and she demanded he take it down. She demanded Elon Musk take it down. They both refused. And then we've had some very tragic, horrific stabbings here in our country in the last month. And the video footage of those things were put on X. And she demanded that they were taken down, even though YouTube, our news channels, and, you know, very accessible everywhere else. So she's really overstepped the mark in wanting to, and it says things like she wants to limit what Australians can see. Like, she's treating us like children, like she's the great mother figure, and we can't make up our own minds or be responsible with the content that we view. And fabulously, Elon Musk and Billboard Chris have said no. No. And I don't know if this lady's heard no often enough in her life. Certainly didn't hear it enough as a child. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's gone to court. They've been denied their application so far to make, because not only did she want X to take it down in Australia, she didn't want anyone in the world to see what's going on in Australia. She wanted to ban the content around the world. Like,
Who's doing the stabbings that she's trying to hide this shit? What's
well,
going
there were two different ones. One guy, you know, again, well, there's speculation that he was Islamic. He was crying out about, you know, Allah, and he stabbed, but he also was a misogynistic woman hater and murdered several women in the most horrific way in one of our biggest shopping centres and most prominent shopping centres in Australia. And then a few,
like in public with people around?
Oh yeah, it was a Saturday afternoon, and it was horrific. You know, a mum and her baby, and he specifically targeted women. The only man that he stabbed, I believe, was the security guard trying to stop him. It was really tragic, like beyond comprehension. We don't get a lot of accurate information, so it's hard to know what his, you know, actual motivation was, but definitely a woman hater. And then the second one that she really was upset about was a teenage Muslim went into an Orthodox church and stabbed the priest while he was preaching in the face. That footage was put up, and she wanted that taken down around the world. Now, the priest himself has since come out and said he doesn't want that footage taken down. He thinks it's very important for it to stay up. She's gone to court to try and have it taken down around the world, and she failed. So that's fantastic, but I believe there's still some legal things ongoing there.
Jesus Christ. I was thinking back to when we were talking about the kids on campus, and I remember after 9/11, my brother shared with me a publication that ISIS had come out with, and you know, I read it, and it's all like you were saying before, it takes almost no digging, and it's like, yeah, it's right in their magazine that's available. It's like correct. It's just like a magazine, like, hey, this is read about. It's like, I want to say it's like
they're
People
not trying
magazine,
to hide
but
it.
it's not like People magazine. Yeah, it's just it's in plain sight. It's glossy. It's in fancy print, and it's basically, you know, all infidels must die. So I mean, enjoy that.
Convert or die. That's it. They're the choices. So
are they gonna kill their parents? Like, is that what's gonna happen? Is that thanks for sending me to college? Like,
yeah, look, it's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see.
How old are your daughters? Do you, or is that overstepping?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm 16 and 19, and I also have a almost 21-year-old son.
All right. And so what are they seeing like, what's going on with their peers? What's going on with, actually, what's going on in your real life? Are you able to talk about this with people?
Yeah, totally. And This is the thing in Australia, like I said, I think, we have public opinion on our side, and it doesn't matter where I go. I'm yet to find anyone who opposes me except a man in a dress. Like there's blokes in frocks who will have a go at me or whatever, or maybe a couple of, unwashed green-haired women, but not many. The majority of Australians, again, from, you know, full-on left-wing voters to right-wing voters, doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, the majority of Australians agree. At first, look, I will say 2 or 3 years ago, I was often nervous and would try and suss people out before I came out with it. Not anymore. I just come out with it, and everyone is just like, I know, it's so crazy. Like I'm totally on your side, and my kids, it's hard for them. They are 100% behind me, with me. I homeschooled them. They all work. They have great careers. Even my 16-year-old is in real estate. She got poached from a part-time cafe job, and I wasn't ready to let her go. But
All I can
they're
say is,
very.
just real quick on the real estate, I wish
Yeah.
I had been poached at a young age, because I'm watching these shows on Netflix and holy fuck.
I
They,
know. She watches them too, and it's like,
whoa,
that's gonna be me. It's like, oh,
that's
okay.
gonna be her, and holy shit. Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but keep
No, not
going.
at all. But they're very bright. My goal in homeschooling them was not what to teach them, but to teach them how to learn, so that they can always, I love learning. I still love learning. I want them to love learning, and that's what they do. So they're leaders in their space. They've won lots of community awards. They do volunteering. They've been in like Air Force cadets and stuff like that, and they've always really shone in that space. And I think not necessarily because they're amazing, but because their peers are all on their phones, or like distracted, or haven't thought through the issues, whereas our kids have. And we do socialize a lot with similar families in this space, but out in the real world, there's times where they're challenged and they're confronted about these beliefs. But I think that they're all been really well equipped, and if they don't know the answer, they'll just say, I don't know the answer to that, I'll go and find out. They're not combative, they're not rude, they're very polite, but they're very firm in their beliefs, and I couldn't be more proud of them. And even my 16-year-old, in real estate you get all types, and you're dealing with the public a lot, and she's just been magnificent in how she works through these issues, and very compassionate. She's very empathetic. I'm not very empathetic, she is, but she deals with that really, really well.
Well, empathy. I was just revisiting an old episode. Do you know who Amy Souza is?
Yeah, but like sort of, yeah.
Known heretic.
I know of her, yeah.
I re-listened to an episode because I sent it to a friend, and I just wanted to revisit it for myself so that I know what she's hearing and everything. And I forgot what I was going to say about it. What were you just saying?
Empathy.
This happens a lot.
Empathy.
The episode was about empathy traps, because that's what she talks about. Like, we're turning off our instincts, and our instincts are there for a reason. We got into trouble with our empathy. And, I remember several years ago, my husband and I were talking about trans something, and I responded to whatever he said with, well, if they think they're women, then they're just women. I yelled that at my husband like a fucking psychopath. And here we are. So,
And here we are. Yeah.
it can happen to the best of us.
Yeah,
Do you
naturally we just do want to be kind and be nice, but I'm really over this whole be kind thing, in the sense that I go, it's not kind to lie to people. It's not kind for 15-year-old girls to have their breasts removed and never have the opportunity to breastfeed children later on. It's not kind to put boys on puberty blockers so that they never experience sexual satisfaction ever in their life. It's not kind to force girls to play sport against men. So get over it. It's not kind. You're not being kind. I'm being kind. Like this, the kindness is truth.
Yeah, reality is, we all need to be stationed in reality, otherwise it's just going to be complete chaos.
Yes.
Do you have anything that we haven't covered, because we're going to wrap up soon? Anything you want to tell us?
Look, I will just say, I've just written today the first draft of a conclusion for a book that we're putting out here in Australia, and it's the stories of 10 families that have been greatly harmed by gender ideology. And you and I have had a laugh, and it's been great. But I've never done anything so harrowing in all my life, to sit with these families, to interview them, to speak with them, to write their stories out, to deal with the trauma. And I find it harrowing writing and reading it. These people are living it, and they're just 10 families out of thousands and thousands and thousands of families. And I just think, these are the sort of things that are really important, that's the next step. We really have to have people in leadership, people in decision-making positions, and just everyday Australians, Americans, Canadians, and English people really understanding that the impact this is having on families is devastating. It is catastrophic, and I'm not over-exaggerating here. And so, we'll be putting this book out in a little while. There's other great books in this space too, but this is specifically Australian. So yeah, that's really where my head and heart is at the moment, is how to really fight for these families, because they've just lost so much. They've done what you and I would do as a parent, thinking they were doing the right thing every step of the way, but so manipulated by systems, the education system, the health system, public policy system, that's really let them down. And so we've got a lot of work to do. Even if we turned it all around today, there's still a long way to go in the healing that is required for all of these people. But here in Australia, our Sex Discrimination Act doesn't even have protections for sex. The only people who are protected in our Sex Discrimination Act are people who identify as. Women are not protected, men are not protected, but if you're a woman who identifies as a man, you're protected. So, for us, it goes right back to the heart of that legislation, and we've got to get the definitions of male and female put back in, which Sal Grover is fighting for, and we all are fighting for. And once we do that, like I said, I think it would still take a decade to turn this ship around. It's just devastating what's happening.
Yeah, well, I will be looking forward to your book.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Do you want to plug any sites or anything like that? And I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Yeah, binary.org.au. We do mostly Australian specific. We do talk about what's going on around the world, but like I said, I think we're kind of unfortunately leading the way in a lot of this nonsense, and maybe Canada's slightly ahead of us, maybe, but it depends what it is. So yeah, check out the website. I'm on all socials. You can find me, Kirralie S. So yeah, and binary.org.au.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. Good luck with your work, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. And I really appreciate you talking to me today.
Oh, so lovely to speak with you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye, everybody.